I just accidentally got cut off because I didn't take the last video clips off of the camera. So it's September 30th. It is now a little bit before 10 o'clock. And I was just talking about how Deborah, what's her name? Dr. Deborah O'Halloran? I'll have to check on the first name. It was Catherine or Deborah O'Halloran. And from Oregon City, Oregon. So, as I was saying, after I found out she was lying, that's when I wondered, why would someone lie about something like that and try to do an invasive procedure when it wasn't even necessary? And what she had told me is, I said, well, is this, when she was talking about doing the surgery and the biopsy and everything, she had it scheduled and everything. She made an appointment date and the works. And I had asked her, because at first I thought that that's what I had to do, so I was agreeing and then saying okay and asking about the procedure. And she said that, well, I asked about anesthesia, and she said, well, typically it's just a local. She said, given the fact that you already have anxiety, because I had, and I think I brought up anxiety at one point on my record, maybe, that in the past of my life, I had panic attacks. And then she said, but given your history, she said, I think that I would put you under general anesthesia. We just do it here in the office. So they were going to put me under general anesthesia, knock me completely out, and then do this cervical biopsy and cut into my body. And if I'm knocked out, they could have done anything. They could have extracted eggs so that the United States government and whoever could, create little babies in test tubes for other people who never have to let you know. Which sounds really weird, but given some of the other things that this country has done to me, I'm positive that has happened before. And later, in my life, I was being coerced to give up my eggs at a fertility clinic. I was being pushed out of federal housing. And then I'm finding out that the people who wanted this to be done, it's looking like, Seattle FBI. So, and that happened, the coercion for me to give up my eggs. That occurred much, much later. But it's a little bit weird that, and actually I just thought of this now, it's if this O'Halloran doctor is connected to the FBI, as I believe she is, that would be kind of strange, because that would mean she was connected to the FBI for Portland, Oregon, way back when she and this other doctor, female doctor in Oregon City, were trying to get me to go under general anesthesia for a quote-unquote cervical biopsy. So at any rate, by doing my own research and trusting my instincts, I was able to confirm that I did not have anything that would cause the condition that they were claiming I needed an invasive procedure for. I was able to confirm and rule it out completely. And I spared my own body this horrible invasive procedure. However, like I said, from that point forward, I really started to have some problems with the medical community. And there were some people who in the medical community who already, a lot of these people, they do sell out. They sell out for research, and they sell out for, they do experiments against human beings. All of the MK Ultra doctors and specialists, they're all doctors. The ones for Canada, Ewan Cameron, for example, you could look him up. He's a doctor. They're all typically psychologists and doctors and scientists who allow other people to torture individuals. And then they assess the behavior and the effects on the body of this torture on individuals. These doctors do. So you've got a group of people who are, not all doctors are good. They're not all doing good deeds and services for people. And since I was already implanted in 1995, there are already some doctors who kind of, I guess, watched me. And then I had this totally bizarre experience where, I didn't know that had happened. And then I had this weird experience where someone's wanting to get into my body and there's no reason for it. And I always just thought, the only thing that came to my mind is maybe they don't want me to have kids. But, now that I think about it, maybe they just wanted an excuse to access my eggs. I really don't know. Regardless, if they had cut into my cervix, it would have weakened it. So, yeah, I didn't ever need to address that issue anymore, and I got out of the O'Halloran Clinic. And I remember they were very hostile. They treated me really rudely. I was still nice to them. I didn't think O'Halloran had any part in it until the way that their clinic treated me. And that's when I knew that she was just as much of an interested party in wanting to do this thing to me as the other doctor was, because they were so rude to me. And I asked for a release of my records, and that was it, and I left. So that was one incident regarding doctors and treatment by doctors that I wanted to bring up. And I can bring up some other situations later, but that was one thing. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention was regarding an Amber Alert call that I made prior to leaving for Canada. And it wasn't obviously for my own son. I was looking this up last night because there was this recent Amber Alert thing issued, and that was the first time that I found out Amber Alert and Missing Children, that is an organization that's connected to the Department of Justice. And I didn't know that. I thought they were a standalone group. I didn't know that they were connected to the federal government. I don't know why. I just didn't know. And prior to my son and I leaving for Canada, around that time, there was a missing woman by the name of Cox. Her last name was Cox. C-O-X. And I had read about her, and then I suddenly had this impression of where she was. And it was one of the first times I had just a sudden, right in front of my face, kind of an impression of somebody, and with a kind of a word attached to it, her name was Cox. It was about her. And I saw that she was in a specific kind of dress, lying on the grass, or sitting on the grass in a certain area. And I remember I called up this organization, and there was also an award or reward attached to it for anyone who could find her as $10,000 reward. And I didn't realize that people were monitoring my phones and that I had this microchip thing going on, and basically people already had access to what I was doing. So I basically I called them and I gave the information to someone over the phone. And I said, I know this sounds really weird, but I had this impression that blah, blah, blah. And then I remember she said something like, are you psychic? Are you a psychic? And I said, no, I don't consider myself to be a psychic at all, but I'm religious and I pray, and I just had this impression, and I think somebody should check on it. and and I didn't know that there was any kind of reward, but I certainly, with my son at that time, could have used some money like that. It would have been helpful. So if there was someone to take that kind of reward, if she'd been found, then yes, I wanted it. But that's not why I initially called. I called because I had that information about her. So then all of a sudden, I found out in the news there's this article about how this woman had been found in the location that I described, which I didn't know about, but basically police officers went to that area and they found her in this same location that I had first described to this woman, to this missing persons organization. And I did not realize it was connected to the Department of Justice. And what I found out is that later somebody else, after I had made the telephone call, someone else had called and tried to take the award and give the information that I had already given. And then I found out that the person was connected to, of all things, the law firm of Bullivant Hauser Bailey that I had already been dealing with. And I thought, what in the world? Because what are the odds that somebody from Bullivant Hauser Bailey, who I was always working up against with my lawsuits, why would someone from Bullivant Hauser Bailey be calling to supposedly give this information after I already gave that information? And then trying to maybe take the reward money, and then claiming that I hadn't been the person who had called in the correct information on where to find her. That was probably the first time, aside from just having a dream here and there, that was the first and only time I had a quote-unquote psychic kind of experience, but I didn't consider it to be psychic because I wasn't, a crystal ball meditating type of person. I didn't have tarot cards, I didn't pray to Satan, my idea of not that psychics do that, but either. There are all kinds of psychics. But because that had occurred, and so then I asked, and I had called them ahead of all the others and given that information, so then I asked if I could take the reward. And then I was being mocked over the phone. And all this time, it now makes a lot more sense because it was connected to the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice is the same group that I was already having to deal with. That wasn't on my side. So basically, I asked them to speak to the police officers because I wanted to talk to the people who did go to the area that she was in and found her. Because I thought, is that really true? Is it really right? I wanted to know if what I thought I had seen matched up with where they found her. I wondered if they could give me more information. So I was given their number and contact information, and I called them, and basically they confirmed everything that I didn't tell them ahead of time, was it this or was it that? I said, well, what kind of clothing was she wearing? What did it look like? And they basically described even some details, more details that I hadn't even given to the people with the missing persons organization. So I knew that what I had seen was correct. And then I looked up the location on a map because I was curious about that, just wanting to confirm that was true. So I looked it up on a map, and the area that they said that where they had found her was right next to a Catholic church, I think. Close to a Catholic church. So supposedly somebody, I think what it was actually was that somebody from this Catholic church that was right in that area where she was found, this green lawn area where I thought I had seen her, someone from a Catholic church had gone out and reported that they found her after I had made a call to the missing persons organization. And then I found out Bullivant Hauser Bailey, that law firm, was somehow connected. So I thought, this is bizarre. I call the department, this organization, I give information about where she is.